The very day I found out I was pregnant, I went out and bought the pills to end it. I sat on the edge of my bed with a plastic cup of water, staring at the blister pack like it was a finish line. My hands were steady. My mind wasn't. I was just about to swallow the first pill when a small voice, impossibly clear, rose from somewhere deep inside me. Mom. Don't. I froze so hard my shoulders locked. Don't do it, the voice insisted, urgent and oddly confident. I can make us rich. I stared at my stomach like it might blink back. Okay, I whispered, because apparently this was my life now. And how, exactly, is a fetus going to make me rich? My dad's a mega billionaire, the voice said, like it was explaining the weather. And then he sighed, actually sighed, like a tiny, world-weary man trapped in a body the size of a peach. Mom. Listen to me. He's not the romantic hero. He's the tragic second lead. The one who runs himself into the ground for a woman who will never choose him. My throat tightened around a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. A second lead. Yes. The kind who thinks devotion is love. The kind who mistakes suffering for destiny. The kind who gets his heart shattered and still shows up with flowers. I stared at the pill in my hand, my brain scrambling for traction. And what does that have to do with me? Everything, he said, suddenly sharp. Because he's obsessed with the heroine right now. And the heroine won't end up with him. She never does. A pause. Also. He has fertility issues. Low chances. I'm his only shot. My fingers went numb. I swallowed hard. You're telling me I'm pregnant by a billionaire who can barely. Mom. And you're his only. Mom, please don't make me say it like that. The absurdity almost snapped me back to reality. Almost. But something about the voice, the urgency, the certainty, landed with a weight that wasn't imagination. It sounded like memory. Like warning. If you have me, he continued, you don't just survive. You win. I inherit his fortune one day, and I take you out of the life where you had to count coins in your couch cushions. I stared at the blister pack again. My hands stopped shaking. I turned, walked 3 steps, and dropped the pills into the trash can like they were cursed. Okay, I whispered. Okay. I'm listening. Good, my son said, immediate relief in that tiny voice. Now, first rule, do not tell him. What? I blurted. Why wouldn't I tell your dad that I'm pregnant? Because he doesn't know he's the second lead, my son said flatly. Right now he thinks he's about to rewrite fate. He's chasing her with his whole chest. And if he finds out you're pregnant, he might not let me be born. The chill that slid over my skin was slow and real. Not because I thought my baby was plotting for fun. Because the way he said it sounded like someone who'd watched it happen. I sat down so fast my knees went weak. Then I tell his mother. Your grandmother. She'll protect her grandchild. No, my son said. I blinked. No? My grandma hates women who try to climb into the family with a baby in their arms. She hates the idea of a kept girl even more than she hates bad headlines. And if she decides she hates you, she might not care about me yet. My chest tightened. So what do I do? You leave, he said, simple as that. You get out of New York before he notices your body changing. You raise me somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. Later, when I'm older, then we let them find out. Later, I echoed. How much later? Long enough that he has no wife. Long enough that my grandma has no options. Long enough that nobody can erase me like I'm an inconvenience. I pressed a palm to my stomach. I didn't even look pregnant yet. There was no bump. No proof. Just a voice and a plan. And what does that make you? I whispered. My son huffed. Mom, relax. He's the kind of guy who won't marry anyone unless it's the one. He'll stay single forever if he can't have her. So I'm not an affair child. I'm just a child born outside marriage. He paused, then added, pleased with himself. Also, if you have me, the Peak family ancestors will probably throw a parade in the afterlife. Despite everything, a laugh escaped me, shaky and small. Okay, I breathed. Okay. I'll do it. And as soon as I said that, I realized the part that hurt. Because leaving meant leaving him. Preston Peake. The man whose name could open doors I didn't even know existed. The man who had kept me in a glasshouse life for 5 years, expensive, quiet, controlled. The man I'd promised myself I would never fall for. And yet. I stood, grabbed my coat, and drove back to the villa he'd given me, my heart thudding like it was trying to outrun my thoughts. When I walked in, he was already home. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows with a cigarette between his fingers, smoke curling around him like he was the only warm thing in the room. Manhattan glittered outside, sharp and cold and endless. He looked far away. Like his body was here, but his mind was somewhere else. I almost walked into his arms out of habit. Almost. Then my son's words snapped through me like a warning bell. Tragic second lead, obsessed, chasing a woman who would never choose him. So instead, I swallowed, and I did the strangest thing I'd done in 5 years. I called him what I'd always called him when I was pretending I didn't care. Mr. Peake. He turned slowly, like he'd been pulled out of deep water. His gaze landed on me. Cool. Heavy. For a second, something in his eyes softened, so faint I might have imagined it. Then he walked over, crushed the cigarette into the ashtray, and said, very calmly, "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. Of course. The script always caught up. My son's voice floated up, steady. "Mom. Don't panic. This was coming." I forced my face into something polite. About what? Preston sat down, folded his hands, and looked at me like he was about to negotiate a merger instead of end a relationship. "How long have we been together?" he asked. The question hit harder than it should have. I'd always known what I was. A pretty secret. A quiet arrangement. A woman he paid for and kept. But being asked to count the years made it feel real. "Almost 5, I said, my smile stiff. 1 month shy?" He nodded slowly, like he was doing math. 5 years? I heard myself think, bitter and practical, that's longer than most men like him keep anything that isn't a yacht. Preston lifted his eyes again. "I've been thinking," he said. "We can't keep this relationship the way it is forever." My heart slammed once, hard. Here it comes. I held my breath. "I want." His phone rang. The sound sliced the room in half. Preston glanced at the screen, and something in his face changed. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't lust. It was gentleness. The kind that makes you feel like you've been holding your whole life in your hands and someone else is walking around with it casually in their pocket. He stood. "I have to take this." He stepped onto the balcony, lowering his voice. I couldn't hear the words. But I could see the expression. I'd never seen him look like that at me. Not once. My throat burned. I swallowed it down anyway, because my son's voice cut through like steel. "Mom. Move. Right now. Before he comes back and sees your hands shaking. Before he notices you're protecting your belly without realizing it. Because if he decides he doesn't want me, he doesn't have to do anything illegal. He has power. He can make things happen." I went cold. When Preston came back in, he didn't sit again. "I have an urgent situation," he said. "We'll finish this conversation when I get back." I nodded too fast. "Of course." He left. And the second the door closed, I moved like my life depended on speed. Because it did. I packed what mattered, jewelry, cash, documents, anything small and valuable I could carry without looking like I was robbing myself. I didn't take much from the villa because I wasn't stupid. Anything I took could be tracked. Anything I took could be used to find me. I sent him one message. "Mr. Peake. I'm going back home. Thank you for taking care of me these past few years. I wish you everything you want in life." I stared at the screen, waiting for a reply. Nothing. Of course not. I was a chapter he planned to close quietly. I swallowed the sting anyway and got in my car. By midnight, I was on the highway, leaving New York behind like a bad dream. I didn't go back to the tiny town I grew up in. I went to the nearest city where I could disappear in plain sight, St. Louis, where no one would look twice at a woman with sunglasses and a new haircut. Years ago, because I'd always known this day would come, I'd bought myself a condo there. A clean, modern place with no memories in the walls. I furnished it quietly. Paid for everything in cash. Kept it waiting like a lifeboat. When I moved in, I threw away my old SIM card and got a new number. If Preston wanted to find me, he could. But only if he remembered I existed. And according to my son, he was busy throwing himself at the wrong woman. I kept my head down. I did my checkups on time. I followed the doctor's instructions like they were law. My son stayed quiet most days, like he was conserving energy. But anytime my emotions spiked, fear, anger, panic, his voice would rise, immediate. Mom. Breathe. We're okay. Then one morning, at a prenatal imaging center, my world tipped sideways. I was holding my paperwork, getting ready to hand it over, when I saw him. Preston Peak. Walking toward the ultrasound wing like he belonged there. My lungs forgot how to work. I turned so fast I almost tripped. My son's voice snapped awake. Mom. What happened? He's here, I whispered, barely moving my lips. Your dad is here. Don't panic, my son said instantly. You're wearing a mask. He won't recognize you that easily. Just leave normally. He was right. I had a mask on. I was in sneakers and a hoodie, clothes Preston had never seen me wear. My hair was tucked under a cap. I looked like every other tired woman trying to get through a morning appointment. I steadied myself and started walking toward the escalator. 1 step. 2. Almost there. A hand closed around my arm. Strong. Unyielding. My body jerked back. I stumbled into the wall, heart detonating. Preston's tall frame caged me in shadow, his voice low and dangerous. Running? He murmured. You think a mask means I don't know you? My mouth went dry. Mom, my son warned softly. Don't spiral. Don't show fear. I forced a smile so fake it almost cracked my face. Mr. Peak. His eyes raked over me, top to bottom, slowly. Then his gaze dropped to the papers in my hand. What's this? He asked, tone unreadable. You sick? I jerked the forms behind my back like a guilty kid. Just a minor thing, I said too quickly. Hormones? You know. My cycle's been irregular. His eyes narrowed. Is it? He said. Let me see. He reached. Panic flared so bright it made my vision blur. Then a woman in a blazer hurried up, breathless, his assistant. Mr. Peak, she said, urgent. Ms. Song is at the hospital. Acute appendicitis. The doctors say she needs surgery immediately. Preston's whole body tightened. His jaw flexed like he was biting down on something sharp. He looked at me again, once, hard. Add me back, he said through clenched teeth. Restore my contact. Now. Then he turned and strode away like the world belonged to him. I didn't breathe until he disappeared. I practically ran out of the building and didn't stop until I was in my car with the doors locked. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely start the engine. What was that? I whispered. My son's voice was too calm. He didn't see the paper. That's good. But why did he tell me to add him back? My throat tightened. What does that mean? I don't know, my son admitted. But Mom, do it. If you refuse, he'll get suspicious. And if he gets suspicious, he'll dig. And if he digs, your new identity won't matter. I hated that he was right. Back home, with my heart still pounding, I typed Preston's number from memory, because of course I knew it, and added him. An hour later, he accepted. Then he sent one message. Send me your address. I stared at the screen like it had grown teeth. My son went silent for half a second, then said, cautious, he probably still hasn't figured it out. He might just want to see you. Or he's angry you disappeared. Or he wants to drag me back, I whispered. Mom. Either way, if you don't send it, He'll find it himself. At least this way, you control the first move. I swallowed hard. Then I did what my son told me. I sent my address. And immediately started hiding everything that could expose me. Vitamins. Doctor pamphlets. Pregnancy test box. Any small detail that screamed the truth. I shoved it all into a storage closet like I was hiding contraband. I had just sat down, exhausted, when the doorbell rang. My body jolted. I opened the door with a smile that felt glued on. Preston stood there like he'd been carved out of cold marble. No warmth. No apology. Just a quiet, infuriating calm. "Mr. Peake," I said, voice tight. "Long time." He nodded once. "I'll be in town a few days," he said. "Hotels here are unpleasant. I'm staying with you." My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh. "That's..." He looked at me, expression dark. "Is that a problem?" My son's voice cut in fast. "Don't refuse. Refusing makes him suspicious. Let him in." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. "No," I lied smoothly. "Not a problem. Of course." I stepped aside. He walked in like it was still his space. Like I was still his. Then reality smacked me in the face. I didn't have men's slippers. I didn't have men's toiletries. I didn't have anything that said, "A man lives here," because no man did. I said quickly. "I didn't know you were coming. I need to run out and buy some things." Preston didn't even blink. "Go." So I ran, bought a bag of expensive basics like I was in some humiliating scavenger hunt, and hurried back. When I walked in, the living room was empty. For a split second, joy bubbled up, maybe he left. Then the storage closet door opened. And Preston stepped out. My heart stopped for a full beat. He looked at me like he'd just finished reading a secret. Then he said, casually, "Your place is clean." I almost collapsed. I forced a laugh. "I clean when I'm bored." He held out his hand. "Give me that." I handed him the bag. He pulled out the slippers, slipped them on, and walked toward the bathroom like he'd lived here for years. I stood frozen, listening to the shower start, wondering if my son could feel how close I was to losing my mind. "You're doing fine," my son whispered. "Just don't let him corner you." Too late. When he came out, he was wrapped in a towel, hair damp, skin still steaming with heat. He leaned against the doorframe like he was deliberately trying to remind me what it felt like to belong to him. "I'll sleep in the guest room," he said. My brain short-circuited. I nodded. "Yeah. Of course." His eyes narrowed, sharp flash of irritation. And that was when I understood, he'd expected me to offer my bed. The entitlement made my skin crawl. Also, my son sighed in my head, "Men are ridiculous." Preston's voice dropped. "You're hiding something." I laughed too loud. "What?" "No." His face darkened. He stepped closer. "You don't lie well," he said. I backed up without meaning to until my hip hit the edge of the bed. Preston's hands braced on either side of me against the wall, trapping me. The pressure of him, his height, his proximity, made it hard to breathe. His eyes locked on mine. "A man who's had you," he said, voice rough, "doesn't stop wanting to know if you're safe. Or if you're mine." I stared at him, stunned by the audacity. In my head, I thought, "Sir, you pay for my apartment and vanish for weeks. You do not get to say mine like it's poetry." Out loud, I forced calm. "I'm not that kind of woman." His expression shifted, anger bleeding into something hungry. He dragged me into his arms, tight, possessive. "Baby," he breathed. No. The word flew out of me like a reflex. Because my son, sleeping or not, was in there. Because I refused to be trapped again. Because I could not risk a single mistake. I pressed my palm over Preston's mouth before he could say anything worse. He blinked, startled. Then his eyes iced over again. "You're hiding something," he repeated. Panic turned my thoughts into static. I searched for a lie fast enough. My period, I blurted. I period started. Preston's lips curled into a cold smile. Is that so? His hand moved toward my waist. I went numb. Fear flashed hot and ugly, and my body did the only thing it could think of. I slapped him. The sound cracked in the room like a gunshot. Preston went still. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. For 1 second, I thought I'd just signed my own death warrant. Then he turned sharply, walked into the bathroom, and came out dressed. He didn't say a word. He left. The front door slammed so hard the walls trembled. I sank onto the couch, shaking. My lungs finally remembered to breathe. My son's voice was small when it came. Mom. That was intense. Don't, I whispered, tears threatening. Don't say anything funny right now. I didn't hear from Preston again. And for a few days, I started to believe I'd escaped the worst. Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I'll give you $5 million. End the pregnancy. My blood turned to ice. I typed back with stiff fingers, what pregnancy? You have the wrong person. The reply came instantly. Your tricks might fool Preston. They won't fool me. And then. Mrs. Peake hates women like you. Handle it now, or she'll handle you. My hands started shaking so violently I almost dropped my phone. My son woke up like he'd been shocked. Mom? What's wrong? I read the messages out loud, voice breaking. There was a silence inside me so long it felt like falling. Then my son said, too quickly, too bright, don't listen. Grandma loves me. She wouldn't hurt me. I stared at my belly, heart pounding. Then why, I whispered, did you tell me earlier she might not care if she hates me? Silence. Longer. Colder. My son didn't answer. And in that silence, something cracked inside me. Not because he was a baby. Because he sounded like a child who had learned to lie to survive. Why? I whispered, anger and fear tangling together. Why would you lie to me? A sound rose up from deep inside me, raw, small, shaking. My son started to cry. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm sorry, Mom. My throat closed. Tell me the truth, I said, voice trembling. All of it? His crying turned into words, spilling out like he couldn't hold them anymore. Grandma won't hurt me, he said. But she doesn't like you. And when I was born before, she took me from you. My chest went tight. You couldn't see me, he whispered. Not even once. You got really sad. You reached a breaking point. My skin went cold all over. And I heard you, he cried. I heard you crying at night. I heard you saying you couldn't do it. And I was so little. I couldn't fix it. Tears blurred my vision. So I lied, he sobbed. Because I didn't want you to disappear. I just wanted you alive. I wanted you to stay with me. I wanted you to raise me. My whole body shook. Anger vanished so fast it felt like it had never existed. All that was left was grief. And love. I pressed both hands to my belly and whispered, oh, baby. He cried harder. Don't be mad. Please. Please don't be mad. I'll be good. I'll be so good. My heart broke cleanly in half. I stroked my stomach, slow and gentle, like I could comfort him through skin and bone. I'm not mad, I said, voice cracking. I'm scared. He hiccuped. I'm scared too. I swallowed. What happened to you? Last time? A pause. Then, softer, I didn't get the fortune. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I died when I was 8, he whispered. A car accident. And then I woke up here, back inside you. And I remembered the story. The plot. All of it. Pain flared so sharp I almost doubled over. No, I choked. No, baby. Not again. He sniffled. It was a different life. It's okay. It's not okay, I whispered fiercely. You're going to be safe. You're going to live. He swallowed, voice tiny and determined. Then we have to be smart. We have to survive. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. People should know their place. People who don't. End badly. My stomach dropped. My son whispered, "Mom." And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just gossip. This wasn't just rich family cruelty. Someone was watching. Someone wanted me frightened enough to do what they wanted. I stared at my phone until my eyes burned. Then I whispered, "We need protection." My son's voice trembled. "Grandma?" "I think so," I said, even as my chest tightened at what it would cost. He started crying again. "But I don't want to be away from you." "I know," I whispered, tears sliding down my face. "I know, baby." I wiped my face and forced my voice steady. "But if we don't survive, we don't get anything. Not you. Not me. Not our future." My son sniffled, struggling. Then, quietly, like a promise, "I'll grow up fast. I'll get strong. And then no one can separate us." My throat ached. "I'll wait for that day," I whispered. "I swear." I went into my memory like a thief and pulled out one number I'd never expected to use. Evelyn Peake. Preston's mother. I'd seen her number once on his phone, years ago, and for some reason I'd memorized it. Maybe because part of me always knew, if anything ever went wrong, the real power in that family didn't sit in Preston's hands. It sat in hers. My fingers trembled as I typed. "Mrs. Peake. I'm pregnant with Preston's child. Someone is threatening me, pressuring me to end the pregnancy." I hit send. And waited. 10 minutes felt like 10 years. Then a message came in. "Don't move. Don't act on your own. I'm sending people to you. Wait." Air rushed out of me like I'd been holding my breath for months. I started packing a bag. Then the doorbell rang. My whole body froze. I didn't go to the door right away. I checked the camera feed first, habit, survival. A young woman stood outside in a building staff uniform, holding a clipboard. My hand hovered over the lock. Something in my gut screamed no. I stayed silent. She rang again. Then she pulled out her phone and called. My phone lit up. My blood turned to ice. I muted it instantly. On the camera, the woman waited. Then 2 men stepped out from around the corner and spoke to her in low voices. They looked up, toward my door, like they were measuring it. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After a tense minute, they finally walked away, irritated. Cold fear crawled up my spine until my limbs felt numb. I called Evelyn with shaking hands. Her voice was calm. "Stay inside. My people are coming." 30 minutes later, 4 men in black showed up, huge, solid, the kind of men who looked like they could stop a car with their shoulders. Evelyn called again. "Now. Go." They escorted me out. As the car turned out of the complex, another vehicle came flying toward us, no plates, reckless speed. Our driver swerved hard. The impact didn't happen. But it could have. And the thought of that was enough to make my hands turn to ice. After that, whoever was hunting me backed off. Not because they suddenly grew morals. Because someone bigger had stepped into the game. By nightfall, I was on a private flight headed back to New York, back into the lion's den, because it was the only place with teeth big enough to keep me alive. Evelyn's mansion wasn't a home. It was a fortress with chandeliers. She placed me in a private wing like I was a fragile object she decided to own, then had a medical team examine me top to bottom. She didn't touch me. She barely looked at me. But everything around her moved like she was the axis of the world. Eventually, she said, "There will be a paternity test." "I expected that," I said quietly. She watched me for a long moment, then gave one small nod, approval, almost. My son, who sounded suddenly more alert in this house, whispered in my head, "Teach her you're useful, Mom. Don't fight. Don't beg. Just be smart." So I learned. I learned what tea she liked. I learned what words she hated. I learned when to speak and when to stay invisible. Evelyn's attitude softened by degrees, not kindness, exactly, but tolerance. Still, she never once promised I would raise my own child. Preston came to the main house occasionally for meals. Evelyn warned me every time. "He's blinded right now," she said once, disgust sharp in her voice. "If he discovers this pregnancy, he may cause trouble. You will stay in your room when he's here." "I understand," I said. And I did. Because whatever Preston felt, whatever story my son had told me, Evelyn didn't care about romance. She cared about heirs. 2 months later, the test confirmed what we already knew. Evelyn looked at the results, then at me. From that day on, her tone changed. She spoke to me more. Asked questions about pregnancy. About delivery plans. About the baby's health. Not because she cared about me. Because I was the vessel carrying what she wanted most. And I started to understand why. The tabloids were brutal. Articles about Preston peaked following Sienna's song around like a man with no pride. Everyone in the city knew. Evelyn was furious, but she couldn't control him. So she did the only thing she could. She redirected her ambition. From her son. To her grandson. Then the visit started. A young woman began coming to the mansion regularly, Sylvie Song, Sienna's half-sister. Sweet smile. Perfect posture. Eyes that watched like a predator pretending to be a pet. Evelyn welcomed her. And the staff started looking at me differently. Not openly. Not enough that I could accuse them. But enough that my skin prickled. I asked my son one night, voice low, "Do you know who she is?" He was quiet, thinking. Then, "She likes Dad." I went still. "She wants to be your stepmom," he added. "Dad doesn't want her." "And your grandmother?" I whispered. My son hesitated, then said, painful and honest, "Grandma wants Dad to marry her." My stomach dropped. My mind replayed every threat. Every unknown message. Every near miss. And suddenly, a new suspect stepped into focus. Not Sienna. Sylvie. Because in a world where marriage meant power, and a baby meant complication, removing me would be convenient. The closer my due date got, the more tense the house felt. Then, 1 week before I was due, Evelyn finally said the words I'd been waiting to hear. She sat across from me, hands folded, expression calm. "You are a sensible girl," she said. "So I won't waste time." My spine went rigid. "You cannot be Preston's wife," she said. "And I will not allow you to raise my grandson." The words landed like a stone. "When the baby is born," she continued, "you will leave. I will give you 50 million as compensation. You will never want for money again." I stared at her. I had no leverage. No allies. No power. If Evelyn withdrew protection, Sylvie could crush me without even touching me. So I nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. Evelyn's mouth curved faintly. "Good. I like smart people." That night, maybe from stress, maybe from the knowledge that my child was about to be taken from my arms, I went into labor. It hit fast. Hard. 2 hours later, my son was born. I heard his first cry, raw and fierce. Then the nurses carried him away. My heart panicked at the emptiness. "Where is he going?" I demanded, breathless. "Routine checks," someone said. Then the doctor approached me holding a syringe. My whole body went still. "What is that?" I rasped. He didn't answer. His eyes were cold. Focused. Something in me screamed. "No," I choked, trying to push myself up, but my body was weak, heavy, aching. I tried to shout. The doctor moved fast, covering my mouth, pressing the needle in. I tasted panic and metal. My vision blurred. I heard footsteps, rushing, voices yelling. Then darkness folded over me. When I woke, it was like surfacing from a nightmare. White ceiling. Bright light. The steady beep of a monitor. For a long moment, I didn't move. Then memory hit. My baby. I pushed myself up, scanning wildly. The bassinet was empty. Baby, my voice cracked. My baby. I ripped at the fourth in my arm, panic rising, and then the door opened. Preston walked in holding a bundled newborn. My breath stopped. He paused when he saw me sitting up. For 1 second, we just stared at each other. Then he said, calm as if this was normal, I took him for an exam. He's fine. He stepped closer. You want to hold him? My hands shook as I reached out. The moment they placed him in my arms, the world steadied. He was warm. Heavy. Real. His tiny face was scrunched in sleep, mouth soft, lashes dark against his cheeks. My tears fell silently onto his blanket. Preston watched me, unreadable. After a moment he said, Sylvie's song has been sent out of the country. I blinked. What? His jaw tightened. She won't be near you again. I didn't know what to say. Part of me had expected nothing. A shrug. A dismissal. Because that was who I thought Preston was. But he was here. He had my baby. And I was alive. I swallowed, voice hoarse. Thank you. Preston didn't look pleased by my gratitude. He looked irritated. Like my reaction was too small for what he'd done. I lowered my eyes to my son's face. And then the grief hit me, sharp and sudden. Because Evelyn's deal still stood. Because I knew what came next. I couldn't stop the tears. I looked up through them and whispered, when are you taking him? Preston blinked, caught off guard. When you're discharged, he said, like it was obvious. My throat tightened. I nodded, trying to be brave. Then I forced the words out anyway, the ones that mattered more than my pride. Please, I said quickly, watch his safety. Not just his health, his security. Someone tried to hurt him before he was even born. They'll try again. So. Preston cut me off, eyes sharp. I'll handle everything. His tone turned harsher. So what? You're his mother and you're leaving it all to me? I let out a bitter, helpless laugh. I would love to be his mother. But I'm not the one who gets to decide. Preston's face darkened. What are you talking about? Your mother, I whispered. She told me I'd leave after he's born. She didn't tell you? Preston stared at me like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then his voice dropped, dangerous. My mother told you to leave. And you just did it? I swallowed. What choice did I have? Preston stepped closer, anger flashing. Are you my mother's woman? Or mine? I went still. My heart stumbled. What? I whispered. Preston's eyes were furious. Do you think I told you to disappear? Do you think I wanted you gone? My mouth opened. Closed. Because wasn't that the whole point? Hadn't he asked how long we'd been together like a man preparing to end something? Hadn't Sienna returned, his so-called one that got away the same day I found out I was pregnant? I stared at him, disoriented. That day. You said we couldn't keep this relationship forever. Preston exhaled like he was trying not to swear. Yes. I whispered, so you were dumping me. His eyes widened, then narrowed, like he was realizing something horrible. You're unbelievable, he muttered. I meant making it official. My brain shorted out. What? Preston's jaw clenched. I was going to make you my partner. Publicly. I was going to turn you official, as you people like to call it. Not kick you out. I stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. But, Sienna. Preston's face twisted with exasperation. I never wanted Sienna. My lungs stopped. He dragged a hand through his hair, voice sharp with frustration. She came to me for help. Her father and stepfamily were destroying her. She needed someone with enough influence to keep them off her back. I helped. That's it. I blinked, slow. But. Everyone says you're chasing her. Everyone says a lot, Preston snapped. And you, he pointed at me like he wanted to shake sense into my skull. You vanished. You blocked me. You ran like I was a monster. I swallowed, shame and anger tangling together. I thought you didn't want the baby. Preston's expression shifted, something fierce and raw crossing his face. "You have no idea," he said, voice low, "how lucky it is that I have him at all." He exhaled sharply, then looked down at my son, sleeping in my arms. "For me," he said, quieter, "this child isn't an inconvenience. He's a miracle." The room went still around us. And slowly, the story my son had told me, second lead, tragic devotion, doomed love, began to unravel. Not because my son was lying. Because he was a child who had only seen pieces. Because maybe Preston had fought the script too. Because maybe the plot wasn't a cage. Maybe it was just a bad prediction. Over the next hours, between nurses, paperwork, and exhaustion, Preston told me everything. He told me why he'd been close to Sienna. He told me why he'd looked so gentle on the balcony that day. He told me he'd planned to talk to me properly, privately, because he didn't want me blindsided. He told me he'd gone looking for me after I vanished, furious and confused. He told me he'd come to St. Louis under the excuse of accompanying Sienna to an event because he suspected I was there. He told me he'd left my condo that night angry because he thought I'd moved on to another sponsor. And then, when he calmed down, he tried to find me again. Only to discover I'd already been taken into Evelyn's fortress. When I finally messaged him about threats, begging him to protect me and the baby, he hadn't believed me at first. He'd been furious. But he'd still come. Because no matter what he was to me, I had been his for 5 years. And men like Preston didn't let go of what they considered theirs without a fight. Sylvie Song didn't just get sent abroad. She got removed. Later, I found out Preston pursued it legally, hard. And when the evidence surfaced that she'd arranged the attempt on me, the full weight of his world came down on her. Even Evelyn couldn't pretend it was just drama after that. She hated the idea of me marrying her son. But she loved her grandson more than she hated my existence. And Preston refused to bend. In the end, Evelyn made a deal with reality. She didn't have to like me. She just had to accept that I wasn't going anywhere. On my son's first birthday, we got married. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a battlefield with flowers. There were cameras. There were whispers. There were women watching me like I'd stolen something that belonged to them. But when Preston took my hand, his grip was steady. And when my son, our son, laughed in my arms, warm and alive and real, my chest tightened with a feeling that was almost too big to hold. I don't know what the future looks like. I'm not naive enough to believe wealth makes people loyal. I'm not naive enough to think a man like Preston can't change. But one fact sits in my bones like a truth nobody can argue with. My son is his only heir. And I survived the plot long enough to see it. So even if hearts change, even if the world tries to rewrite me again, I already know how to fight for what's mine.